General Motors temporarily shutting down more than half of its plants in North America.
General Motors plans to close its plant in Lordstown, Ohio.
V8 engines can fail without warning, raising the risk of a crash.
General Motors, once hailed as the symbol of American strength and dependability, is now facing a storm of lawsuits, customer outrage, and a collapsing reputation. At the center of the crisis is a decision that defies logic. While thousands of GM truck and SUV owners struggle with catastrophic engine failures, the company has chosen to pour nearly $888 million into building the next generation of V8 engines. For GM executives, it's a bold investment in the future, but for loyal customers stranded on highways and burdened with repair bills exceeding $15,000, it feels like a brutal insult. A declaration that the company values Wall Street applause more than Main Street trust. Across America, families who spent decades believing in GM's legacy now face a haunting reality. Their brand new Silverados, Sierras, Tahoes and Yukons are breaking down, sometimes before their first oil change. Engines seize without warning, dashboards light up in panic, and tow trucks replace the sense of pride that once came with owning a most dependable vehicle. These are not isolated incidents. Over 28,000 engine failures have been reported, many traced to lubrication problems that turn a $70,000 truck into a driveway ornament. Either betrayal runs deeper than mechanical failure. It's about what GM represents, or used to represent, to millions of working-class Americans. For decades, the company's trucks were more than machines. They were identity, legacy, and livelihood. When that trust shatters, it isn't just metal breaking down. It's pride, reliability, and faith in a brand that once defined toughness. Now, as lawsuits multiply and public anger spreads, one question looms large. How did GM allow its most loyal customers to become its loudest critics? The answer lies in a series of missteps, from rushed engineering to tone-deaf corporate decisions that expose how far GM has drifted from its roots. And at the heart of it all is a story about priorities, accountability, and the price of neglect. Real quick, if you're into videos that cut through the noise and break things down clearly, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps more people find this. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's a good time. We've got more deep dives coming your way. Also, drop a comment and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your take. Now onto the video. What began as a proud evolution of GM's legendary small block V8 has turned into a crisis that threatens the company's foundation. Under the hood of thousands of trucks lies the 6.2-litre V8, an engine once marketed as a triumph of power and efficiency, but for many owners, it has become a ticking time bomb. Reports have flooded online forums, dealerships and courtrooms of engines dying long before reaching 50,000 miles. Some failed right after the very first oil change. Others lost compression, burned oil at alarming rates, or simply seized without warning while families were driving on highways. Issue stems from a fundamental design flaw in lubrication. GM's decision to use ultra-thin zero W20 oil, originally intended for small, lightweight cars, in heavy, high-performance trucks, was a gamble to meet strict federal fuel economy standards. On paper, thinner oil improved efficiency. In reality, it left the massive 6.2-litre engines vulnerable to excessive wear, low oil pressure, and internal damage. Bearings failed. Pistons scored, crankshaft seized. The result? Complete engine failure that left thousands stranded and facing repair costs comparable to the price of a used car. Owners described the experience as both devastating and humiliating. For many, their trucks were not luxury purchases, but tools. For work, for family, for life. A construction worker from Texas described his pride in buying a $72,000 Silverado High Country, a symbol of years of hard work, only to have its engine collapse after 40,000 miles. It's not just a truck, he said, it's my livelihood, and they broke it. Dealerships across the country began to see patterns of premature failure, yet GM's response was slow, fragmented, and dismissive. Instead of acknowledging a systemic problem, the company treated each breakdown as an isolated incident. The result was a growing wave of frustration that transformed loyal customers into critics. Forums and Facebook groups dedicated to GM trucks now read like digital protest lines, filled with photos, receipts, and stories of shattered trust. What makes the situation worse is the silence from the top. GM's marketing continues to call these vehicles America's most dependable, even as service departments fill with evidence to the contrary. The contradiction is hard to ignore. While the brand pushes slogans of reliability, the very engines meant to uphold that promise are failing at an unprecedented rate. And for thousands of buyers who believed in GM's heritage, the fallout feels personal, like betrayal disguised as innovation. When a crisis this widespread hits a company the size of General Motors, customers expect accountability and a real solution. Instead, what they received was a patch that felt more like a public relations maneuver than an engineering breakthrough. GM's official response to the engine failures was simple and infuriating. The company told dealers and customers that the solution was to switch to thicker oil. In other words, owners who had already suffered breakdowns were told to abandon the manufacturer-recommended 0W20 oil and instead use 0W40, a denser, heavier alternative. To many, this fix felt like an insult. Thousands of truck owners had already been told that 0W20 was the precise oil needed for maximum performance and protection. The oil listed in owner's manuals and printed on service stickers. But after tens of thousands of failures, GM appeared to quietly shift the blame onto customers, implying that the problem wasn't engineering, but maintenance. The thicker oil solution might temporarily prevent some engines from seizing, but it introduces a new problem: fuel economy plummets. Thicker oil increases internal friction, forcing the engine to work harder and consume more fuel, costing owners hundreds, even thousands of dollars more over the life of the vehicle. The legal implications were immediate. Class action lawsuits across multiple states pointed out that GM had effectively trapped customers in a lose-lose situation. Option 1. Keep using the original thin oil and risk catastrophic failure. Option 2. Use the thicker oil and pay higher fuel costs while voiding fuel efficiency promises. Lawyers called it a deliberate delay tactic, a move designed to keep engines alive just long enough to outlast the warranty period. It's a charge that resonates with frustrated buyers, many of whom believe GM engineered not a solution, but a stall. To make matters worse, GM refused to publicly acknowledge the defect as a recall-level issue, classifying it instead as a customer satisfaction update. The language was deliberate and damaging. By avoiding the term recall, GM sidestepped mandatory reporting requirements and avoided the public relations fallout that comes with admitting fault. But to owners, the message was clear. GM wasn't fixing the problem, it was managing it. And as customers wrestled with the financial and emotional burden of these so-called fixes, another, even more alarming problem emerged, one that wasn't hidden beneath the hood, but flying straight into traffic. Just when GM owners thought things couldn't get worse, new reports began to surface. Not about engines this time, but about body parts detaching at highway speeds. Several drivers came forward describing how the massive chrome grille deflectors on GMC and Chevrolet trucks had sheared off while driving, turning into high-speed projectiles. Photos began circulating online, showing shattered windshields, dented hoods, and chrome fragments scattered across roads. The phrase road shrapnel started appearing in Facebook groups and owner forums, a chilling reminder that this wasn't just about broken trucks anymore, it was about public safety. One Kansas driver reported that his GMC's grille tore off during hunting season, right after his 6.2-litre engine had already failed from oil starvation. Two major mechanical failures, same truck, same owner. For him, the experience wasn't just inconvenient, it was frightening. "I thought I was driving a family vehicle," he said. "Turns out I was driving a liability." The imagery was hauntingly familiar to those who remembered GM's past scandals. A decade earlier, the company faced international outrage over its ignition switch crisis, which was linked to over 100 deaths and triggered congressional hearings. In that case, GM had delayed action for years, downplaying internal reports and minimizing the scope of the issue until lawsuits and government investigations forced their hand. At the time, GM executives publicly vowed that the company had learned its lesson, that safety and transparency would define its future. But today, many see the same pattern returning: deny, delay, deflect. The parallels are undeniable. In both cases, ordinary consumers paid the price for corporate hesitation. The difference now is that social media has made cover-ups far harder to maintain. Videos of failing engines and flying grills circulate widely, eroding public trust faster than any press release can rebuild it. Once again, GM's customers are doing the job the company refused to do, documenting defects and demanding accountability. This new wave of failures has reignited a painful question: how many times can a company promise change before the public stops believing? For GM, the stakes aren't just financial, they're existential. The automaker that once symbolized American reliability is now fighting to prove that it even deserves to stay in that conversation. And yet, while owners deal with the fallout, GM is focused elsewhere on a new investment that feels like salt in an open wound. In early 2024, General Motors made headlines with what seemed like a triumphant announcement: an $888 million investment into its Tonawanda engine plant in New York, or EC. The goal? To build the next generation of small-block V8 engines. To investors and the business press, it looked like a bold commitment to innovation and job creation. But for the tens of thousands of current GM truck owners still grappling with defective engines, the news hit like a gut punch. How could a company sitting on thousands of unresolved failures find nearly $1 billion to build more of the same? For customers, the optics were infuriating. Instead of dedicating resources to repairing existing trucks or compensating victims, GM appeared to be doubling down on image, prioritizing future sales and investor confidence over present accountability. That $888 million could have covered repair costs, buybacks, or extended warranties for thousands of affected vehicles. Instead, it became a symbol of corporate misalignment, proof that GM's focus had shifted from people to profits. Inside corporate circles, GM executives justified the move as future-proofing. The company argued that investing in advanced combustion engines was essential for maintaining competitiveness in a changing market. But critics quickly pointed out the irony. GM was funding tomorrow's engines while refusing to fix today's. The very same V8 technology that was causing breakdowns in driveways across America was being celebrated in press releases as a triumph of engineering. To loyal buyers, it felt like being left behind, abandoned in favor of glossy headlines. Meanwhile, Wall Street celebrated. Stock analysts applauded GM's strategic confidence and its ability to balance internal combustion investment with an electric future. The financial press called it a smart move, a hedge against the slow adoption of EVs. But on Main Street, the reaction was outrage. Truck owners, many facing $15,000 to $20,000 engine repair bills, couldn't help but wonder why GM could invest nearly $1 billion in expansion, but not in restitution. The contrast exposed a painful truth. GM's priorities no longer align with the people who built its reputation. Investors cheer, executives collect bonuses, and factory doors open for new projects, while loyal customers fight in court to be heard. The billion-dollar investment was supposed to symbolize progress. Instead, it became the defining image of a company more concerned with optics than obligation. And while GM's press releases celebrated the future, a different battle was unfolding in courtrooms across the country, a battle that would determine whether the company could truly escape the shadow of its past. As frustration boiled over, thousands of owners began to realize that waiting for GM to do the right thing was pointless. The only remaining path was through the courts. What started as scattered individual complaints quickly evolved into a nationwide legal uprising. Class action lawsuits were filed in multiple states, each one echoing the same theme. GM knew about the engine defects, failed to disclose them, and offered inadequate solutions that left consumers with enormous financial losses. Inside these lawsuits, the language is searing. Attorneys argue that GM's so-called fix, switching from 0W20 to 0W40 oil, amounted to little more than a corporate stall tactic. The filings allege that GM's engineers understood the lubrication issues long before customers began reporting failures, but the company avoided issuing a recall to protect its profit margins. The result, according to lawyers, is that consumers were knowingly sold ticking time bombs. For families caught in the middle, the experience has been financially and emotionally draining. Many owners describe the humiliation of paying $70,000 for a vehicle they can't rely on. One farmer in Iowa said his Silverado failed just after 42,000 miles, well past warranty, far below what anyone would consider normal wear and tear. Repair estimates reached nearly $18,000. forcing him to choose between fixing the truck or refinancing his home. "They sold us pride," he said bitterly, "and gave us junk." What makes this courtroom battle so striking is the imbalance of power. Ordinary people, mechanics, small business owners, veterans, and retirees are taking on a multinational corporation worth tens of billions of dollars. Yet, despite the odds, momentum is building. Law firms representing consumers are coordinating evidence across states, citing internal documents, expert testimony, and maintenance records that show patterns of failure too widespread to ignore. In the court of public opinion, GM's silence is already a loss. But inside the legal system, these cases may carry long-term consequences. If judges rule that GM concealed known defects, the company could face billions in damages and be forced into recalls that would shake its financial stability. And as the lawsuits grow, another blow hits the brand, this time on dealership lots across America. The financial fallout of GM's engine disaster has extended far beyond repair bills. It's now visible in the market collapse of GM's most expensive trucks. Dealers across the country are quietly slashing prices on Silverado and Sierra models equipped with the 6.2-litre V8, offering discounts that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Vehicles once priced at $80,000 are being marked down to $68,000 or less. Some dealers admit privately that it's not generosity, it's desperation,
"People are scared,"
said one Chevrolet salesperson.
"They've read the stories. They know about the lawsuits."
These trucks just don't move like they used to. For existing owners, this rapid devaluation is devastating. The same trucks they once considered investments have turned into liabilities. Trade-in values have collapsed by thousands, leaving many with loans that now exceed their vehicle's worth. It's a trap, with no easy exit. They can't sell without losing money, can't trade without taking a hit, and can't drive without fearing another breakdown. The result is a feeling of being cornered. Financially and emotionally, this plummeting resale value isn't just anecdotal. Market analysts, tracking used truck pricing, have confirmed sharp declines specifically for GM models associated with the defective engines. Meanwhile, competitors like Ford and Ram, though not without their own issues, have benefited from the fallout, attracting once loyal GM buyers who feel betrayed and abandoned. The reputational damage is feeding directly into economic loss, a cycle that could take years to reverse. At the same time, GM's marketing campaigns continue to boast about America's most dependable trucks, a message that feels increasingly tone-deaf. For those watching their investments disintegrate, the commercials feel less like reassurance and more like mockery. Every glowing ad reminds them of the gap between GM's slogans and their reality. Dependability should mean trust and durability, not lawsuits, breakdowns, and discounts that scream desperation. This widening chasm between image and experience has left customers questioning not just the trucks, but the brand's soul. And while GM's PR team pushes optimism, the company's next move, a shift toward electric and turbocharged alternatives, suggests it's trying to change the subject entirely, with the backlash intensifying and legal threats mounting. General Motors has begun steering the public's attention toward a new narrative, the electric future. Walk into a GM showroom today, and you'll see massive banners for the Silverado EV and GMC Sierra EV Denali, both priced well above $70,000, with some configurations exceeding $90,000. The message is clear. Forget the failing V8s of the past. The future is electric, luxurious, and sustainable. But for many consumers, the timing feels less like innovation and more like distraction. The reality is that most of GM's core customers, contractors, farmers, and families in rural states, aren't ready for the EV leap. Charging networks remain limited, battery costs are high, and towing capability under electric systems still lags behind traditional engines. To these buyers, GM's electric push feels like an attempt to change the conversation rather than address the crisis. They want us to forget the engines that failed, one owner wrote on social media, by showing us trucks we can't afford and don't trust. But GM's pivot doesn't stop at electric. The company has also begun introducing its Turbo Max 4-cylinder engine into full-size trucks, another gamble that's being met with skepticism. On paper, the smaller turbocharged engine promises efficiency and power comparable to a V8. In practice, critics warn it's another shortcut, a lightweight solution to a heavyweight problem. Turbo engines are notoriously sensitive under heavy loads, and long-term durability remains unproven in vehicles designed for towing and hauling. Many see echoes of Toyota's controversial decision to phase out its reliable V8 CSAT for smaller turbo units, a move that sparked backlash from traditional truck buyers. GM seems poised to repeat the same mistake, alienating its most loyal demographic in the process. The irony is that while GM tries to redefine its future, it's losing sight of why its trucks mattered in the first place: reliability, strength, and trust. In attempting to rewrite the story, GM may be erasing the very qualities that once made it great. The electric and turbo gamble might please investors, but it's doing little to heal the wounds left by a generation of broken engines. And even within GM's own walls, the consequences are beginning to surface among the workers who build these trucks and the communities that depend on them. The story of General Motors' V8 scandal is no longer just about defective engines. It's about a systemic failure of priorities, a company that forgot that innovation means nothing without integrity. What began as isolated reports of breakdowns has evolved into a nationwide reckoning, one that touches every corner of GM's empire: its customers, its workers, its investors, and even the politicians who once praised it as a symbol of American industry. In Washington, murmurs of potential hearings are growing louder. Lawmakers still remember the ignition switch scandal and the haunting image of executives testifying under oath, while victims' families watched. Now, as engine failures and safety hazards mount, congressional committees are reportedly reviewing background materials, preparing for inquiries that could once again place GM in the national spotlight. Safety failures make potent political ammunition, and in an election season, few targets are as visible as a multinational corporation accused of betraying its customers. Meanwhile, on Wall Street, confidence is wavering. Analysts are recalculating projections as recalls, discounts, and legal liabilities pile up. GM's once reliable profit engine, the Silverado and Sierra lineup, has become a source of uncertainty. Every lawsuit filed and every dealership discount chips away at investor trust. The market understands a bad quarter. It doesn't forgive a broken foundation. But the true power in this story doesn't belong to politicians or investors. It belongs to the people, the families, workers, and loyal customers who are refusing to stay silent. Across social media, truck owners are documenting failures, sharing experiences, and uniting their voices. Class action filings, community groups, and public awareness campaigns are transforming private frustration into collective pressure. That unity is reshaping the conversation, proving that accountability still matters, even against corporate giants. The scandal has also forced a hard truth into the open. Dependability cannot be manufactured through advertising. It's earned through responsibility, transparency, and respect for the people who keep a company alive. If GM wants to rebuild its future, it must start not with billion-dollar press releases or electric distractions, but the humility to fix what's broken, both in its machines and in its values. Because in the end, this isn't just about engines that failed, it's about promises that did. And until those promises are made right, every dollar GM spends on the future will remain haunted by the echoes of its past. Once again, thanks for watching this video. If you got something out of this, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. And hey, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Agree, disagree, or something in between. I'd love to hear it.